Thank you for joining us with our news on QTV. We take a look at stories making headlines. President Edgar Lungu has launched the Sustainable Development Goals SDGs Sub-Regional Center for Southern Africa with a call for the formulation of regional policies. The Civil Society Constitution Agenda SISCA says that the Constitution Amendment Bill is a failed project and should be withdrawn from Parliament. And the Health Professions Council of Zambia is concerned that some health facilities are resorting to advertisement in a bid to persuade citizens to use particular health facilities. And now the news in detail. President Edgar Lungu has launched the Sustainable Development Goals SDG Sub-Regional Center for Southern Africa in Lusaka with a call for the formulation of regional policies. President Lungu believes that the quest to achieving SDGs calls for promotion of development-oriented policies that support creation of decent jobs and entrepreneurship. He says the launched SDGs Sub-Regional Center will therefore aim at assisting member states to formulate regional policies and strategies that promote creation of job opportunities for all. President Lungu says the Southern Africa region also expects that the center will work closely with the national development banks to support national development priorities for achieving SDGs. The head of state is happy that the Development Bank of Zambia DBZ has already signed a collaborative agreement with the SDGs Center for Africa, from which agreement he expects results.
Excellencies, your passion and commitment towards the development of the African continent is admirable and inspiring for all of us. Equally, we're indebted to the staff and leadership of the African Center, the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa Commission Secretary, and all people of goodwill for their valuable contribution towards the establishment of the center. We cannot salute you all. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, allow me to pay special tribute to the people who graciously accepting the course of sending. The center, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, is in good hands, and we will not take the honor of historic honors lightly or for granted. I wish to reassure you that this center has the full support of the government and people in the Republic of Zambia.
Speaking at the same launch, Rwandan President Paul Kagame commended President Lungu for the speed at which Zambia has followed through its pledge to host the SDGs Sub-Regional Center. President Kagame, who is also board chairperson of the SDGs Center for Africa based in Rwanda, says the region trusts that the Sub-Regional Center is in good hands.
Next month, at the United Nations General Assembly, we will participate in the SDGs Summit. This is a high-level political forum to assess progress to date and renew the global determination to what it takes to achieve the goals. Importantly, the United Nations and the African Union are going to be working even more closely together. The launch of this sub-regional center is therefore very timely, and I hope other regions of our continent will follow suit. Indeed, Liberia has already committed to host the West African Center.
Earlier, Namibia's Vice President Nangolo Mbumba reminded African countries that as signatories, they have a moral obligation to deliver all goals within the SDGs. Mr. Mbumba says the task before African countries is to closely work together in delivering the various SDGs targets.
And the task upon us is to cohesively work together as nations to deliver upon the various sustainable development goal targets. Therefore, the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals Center for Southern Africa here in beautiful Lusaka, Zambia, will go a long way in further
Civil Society Constitution Agenda SISCA says the Constitution Amendment Bill number 10 of 2019 is a failed project and should be withdrawn from Parliament until consensus is reached through dialogue led by the Church. SISCA Vice Chairperson Judith Mulenga says it is clear that government bulldozed the National Dialogue Forum for the purpose of coming up with a constitution amendment that is in direct contrast to the Zambian people's wishes and aspirations. Ms. Mulenga has accused the ruling Patriotic Front of adding certain clauses to the constitution amendment during the National Dialogue Forum to suit them. Speaking at a media briefing, Ms. Mulenga has called on Zambians to rescue the constitution from the ruling Patriotic Front by demanding for the setting aside of the Constitution Amendment Bill of 2019. She says Zambians should reject the bill with a contempt, stating that the Constitution cannot have clauses that negate the oversight provision that protect the interest of the people. Ms. Mulenga has reminded government that the people of Zambia did not make submissions for a coalition government, reintroduction of deputy ministers, the election of mayors by councillors, the shortening of the campaign period, and the removal of retirees from the payroll before getting their benefits, among others.
To all these articles that speak to the Bank of Zambia functions, the Auditor Generals, the financial crimes, it has now been taken out and embedded under the deck. Now, what we are saying is, at what point did we Zambians express dissatisfaction with the current provisions that are in the current constitution? There's never been any record of us expressing this dissatisfaction. And moreover, we have never been consulted, except those people that went to the National Dialogue Forum. I don't know who they were representing, but the rest of us, I can claim I've never been consulted on why there's need to place the Financial Crimes Agency under the deck, why there is need to change some functions of the Auditor General, why there is need to revise some functions of the Bank of Zambia. It's those provisions that they've added where there was no public discussion around. So we are saying that at no time did the people of Zambia express dissatisfaction with what is currently in the Constitution.
Speaking at the same event, ZESCA board member McDonald Chipenzi has urged members of parliament to reject the constitution bill.
Perhaps all of us will be called to give witness, to scrutinize this bill. And it's our role to encourage as many people as possible to take the stance that is taken here to reject the bill. So that if the parliament will go ahead, they will go ahead against the popular will of the people and stakeholders. And that will show to us that these people don't mean well, and they are not democrats. These are just dictatorship hiding under the law and under the guise of democrats. Because Democrats listen to the people. So if they will go ahead, even when majority will reject, and we are aware actually even the select committee that has been put in there, but we shall go there.
Finance Minister Wale Ngandu has encouraged the Zambian private sector to take advantage of the 750 million United States dollars financing facility offered by the African Development Bank to achieve stability, sustain their growth, and become competitive in the domestic and international marketplace. Speaking during a consultative dialogue with African Development Bank Country Manager Mary Munyao at the ministry headquarters, Dr. Ngandu has described the facility as a honeycomb of empowerment for Zambia's small and medium-scale enterprises. And Ms. Munyao reaffirmed that a further 50 million United States dollars lending facility is available through the Development Bank of Zambia. She adds that many international development financial institutions are keenly following proceedings between the bank and the government because they consider the Development Bank of Zambia as a critical factor in demonstrating the effectiveness of development, finance, and boosting private sector growth and competitiveness. And Dr. Ngandu assured the African Development Bank that the government would soon finalize its internal processes so that small and medium-scale enterprises soon begin to get the money. The Health Professions Council of Zambia, HPCZ, has noted with concern an emerging trend by some health facilities and health practitioners resorting to advertisement in a bid to persuade citizens to use particular health services and facilities. In a press statement, HPCZ Head of Public Relations Terry Musonda says health practitioners are prohibited from advertising, endorsing or encouraging the use of any health establishment, complementary medicine, device or scheduled substance, among others, in a manner that unfairly promotes the practice of a particular health practitioner or a healthcare facility for the purpose of financial gain or other valuable consideration. Mr. Musonda says this is against guidelines for good practice in the healthcare profession. He says any act contrary to the Code of Ethics on Advertisement is regarded as professional misconduct, and perpetrators, both private and public, are subject to prosecution. Mr. Musonda states that the use of promotional advertising is not only a breach of the professional code of ethics, but could also be a danger to the public, especially in circumstances where it raises false hopes of cure. He has since advised health facilities and practitioners intending to advertise to consult the Health Professions Council of Zambia or refer the Professional Code of Ethics for guidance on acceptable forms of advertising.
It should be noted here that the practice is against the guidelines for good practice for healthcare profession. And to that effect, we want to emphasize here that no practitioner is allowed to advertise, endorse, or encourage any use of any facility or medicine or of any nature or device with regards to the services of health nature. And to that effect, we want to emphasize that that should not be used in any way as a means or for the purpose of financial gain or any variable consideration. So we want to remind all practitioners or facility owners that the practice is against the code of ethics and it's unprofessional and it should not be tolerated in any way. As a council, we also want to...
All People's Congress Party President Nelson Musoni has described President Edgar Lungu's directive to withdraw mining licenses for inactive mines as misdirected. Mr. Musoni says the role of any government should be to support the growth of its own local entrepreneurs in mining, hence the presidential directive is misconceived. He says encouraging citizens to take part in mining will help stem capital flight. Mr. Musoni says that the Minister of Mines is expected to advise the President accordingly on such matters.
I think this is opening room to speculation that the government has sinister motives of confiscating mines, mainly from Zambians, and giving them over to foreigners. But we think that the commitment of any government, a serious government, should be to empower our locals, our local citizens, to help stem capital flight. Capital flight is real when it comes to mining businesses. Zambia has not benefited much from the mining activities because the majority foreigners have externalized most of their profits. So we think that the focus of government, rather than just to focus on grabbing from Zambians, it should be to help empower our citizens to grow. So to assert or to give a directive that, look, take away any mine of anybody who's not active, I think is...
The Zambia National Men's Network for Gender and Development says latest police statistics on gender-based violence for the second quarter of 2019, indicating an increase in the vice, calls for the stiffening of law by way of imposing life sentences on defilers and rapists. Network National Coordinator Nelson Banda is saddened to note that the country recorded 6,139 gender-based violence cases, out of which 583 were defilement cases. Mr. Banda says the lives of girls are at a huge risk and that the country is facing a serious human disaster that requires the concerted efforts of all stakeholders to address. He says it is disturbing that during the same period, 20 women and men lost their lives in gender-based violence-related murders, which could have been avoided if people sought counseling instead of resorting to violence. Mr. Banda has told Q News that in response to the ever-increasing gender-based violence cases, his organization will be launching a 3-year campaign dubbed the Trusted Men Campaign, aimed at models aimed at building a cadre of men and boys who will serve as positive role models in building positive behaviors for a more gender-responsive society. He explains that the campaign will reach out to men and boys in their own spaces such as bars, markets, bus stations, churches, schools, political parties and communities with sensitization messages against gender-based violence.
So we want to get to these men so that they speak out against gender-based violence. That's most important, that they should also be role models to other young men. Okay. We are also tapping into the voices of the boys so that we have training sessions for them, because the boys are the men of tomorrow. So we want to build their capacity or mentor them so that they become responsible men of tomorrow. Yeah, so that's what the campaign is all about. It will involve a cross-section of people from diverse backgrounds, and we are going to launch it this month in Chongwe, and we'll roll it out to other places countrywide. So we want.
Residents of SUMBWE district in Southern Province are appealing to government to do more to alleviate the hunger situation in the district. Some residents have complained to Q News that they are surviving by the grace of God following the hunger situation as a result of drought during the last farming season. They have expressed fear that lives might be lost if nothing is done to address the situation. Favorite Kalando has more in this report.
Every day, many people across the globe struggle to feed their children a nutritious meal. In a world where they produce enough food to feed everyone, an estimated 820 million people, 1 in 9, still go to bed on an empty stomach each night, according to World Food Programme. This underscores the immense challenge of achieving the Sustainable Development Goal of zero hunger by 2030. I recently visited SUMBWE district located in Southern Province, which has been hard hit with the severe drought following the serious dry spell during the 2018-2019 farming season, forcing farmers' fields to completely dry up, threatening people with starvation in the district.
So, please, we are requesting the government to help us immediately, because we are going to die. If I'm speaking now, I will die because of this hunger is too hard.
Others have called on government to speed up the process of distributing relief food.
Through the government to come in time to assist. This area is in fact is a droughty area in Southern Province that receives a lot of difficulties in terms of food.
People who are hungry, old women, they have no money. I think the best way is if they can form up groups and make sure that these people who spearhead, they are transparent. The food should go to the people. The food should reach the real vulnerable, those people who are really in need. You find this food will be given to people who already have.
But Zambia Civil Society Organization for Scaling Up Nutrition Alliance National Coordinator Matthew Muhuru has observed with concern that the distribution of relief food is being politicized in some hunger-stricken areas.
We've had reports that in some areas relief food is being politicized, which should not be the case. So when people are hungry and they're food insecure, it's just prudent that we take relief food to those areas rather than, the politicization.
For Council of Churches in Zambia General Secretary Father Emmanuel Chikoya wants government to declare hunger situation a national disaster to enable cooperating partners come on board.
So I think the important thing when we have a problem is to just admit that there's a problem. For example, certain regions need to be declared as hunger-hit, hunger-stricken areas so that the relevant local and even international support can be given.
In Matthew 25, verse 35 and 40, Jesus says, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. Truly I tell you, just as you did it to me, of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." It is only hoped that all those who are affected by hunger situation in some parts of the country will, or they have received their relief food.
Government, through the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit, has started the distribution of relief food in Luampa District of Western Province. Luampa District Commissioner Winnie Kamayoyo says the district has received over 4,000 by 12.5 kilogram bags of mealie meal. Speaking in an interview with Zanis, Ms. Kamayoyo says the relief food will be distributed to all hunger-affected areas in the district. She says 80% of the relief food will be distributed under the Food for Work program, while the remaining 20% has been allocated for old people, child-headed households, and other vulnerable people.
This is Luampa district. It's one of the newly created district in the Western Province. We are so thankful to the Vice President of the Republic of Zambia, Mrs. Inonge Mutukwawina, for the support that has been given to the district. We are not spared by the drought. There's really, the hunger situation is really real in Luampa. So we are thankful for receiving 4,480 kgs of meal, that is 12.5 kgs. And this meal, the 20% of it will go to the old, the very sick. They are going to receive the 20% free of charge. But for the 80% of the meal, it will be given to those who will be engaged in small projects, like clearing the canals, checking at the schools, hospitals, and extra. Otherwise, we are really so thankful to the government of the day under the leadership of Dr. Lungu.
Meanwhile, Luampa District Agriculture Coordinator Pius Mambo says that Luampa is one of the districts that experienced a poor harvest due to the poor rainfall experienced during the 2018-2019 farming season. He says the poor rainfall experience has created a hunger situation throughout the district.
Being the chairperson for SUMBWE, we are so grateful to His Excellency Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu for giving us the support. I think from the experience we had last season, because of poor rainfall pattern, people did not produce. Now the recent government of the day has come on board to give us about 4,480 by 12.5 kg of mealie meal. To us as a district, Luampa, we are so grateful. We realize we have a listening government under his leadership of Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu. However, looking at the population we have over 51,000 plus, we still ask for more of this kind so that at least the people of Luampa can have something to take at the end of the day. Not much to say. I think we've got a very hard-working commissioner who has been fighting for and helping for the people of Luampa so that at least at the end of the day, one or two things can be attained. We are equally much being the chairperson for
Commerce, Trade and Industry Minister Christopher Yaluma says government expects to reach a stage of ratifying the African Continental Free Trade Area AfCFTA by the end of this month. Mr. Yaluma says that this is the target government has given itself. He has told QTV News that the ratification of the AfCFTA will be subject to cabinet approval. Mr. Eluma states that government is convinced that once ratified, the AFCFTA will be embraced by all Zambians.
So we again now moved into trying to ratify. So ratification means now we'll have to go back to cabinet to say now we are ready for ratification, and then move on to parliament. As it is right now, by end of August, I think we'll have reached the stage of ratification. That's the target we've set for ourselves. We should be doing that. This is a situation which should be embraced by Zambia. It's an opportunity for African countries to trade amongst themselves. This will ensure that all these other barriers will be ironed out. The duty will run about, the restriction of people flowing to the other country to go and provide their services or sell their goods, this will be attended to. It will be an issue of the past. But what you dictate is you have got very good quality of your products which will compete adequately.
Government has been urged to consider regulating tuition centers in the country in order to curb examination malpractices. Secondary Schools Teachers Union of Zambia, SESTU's General Secretary Steve Siku Wamunyima says that tuition centers need to be regulated and monitored closely. Mr. Wamunyima has told Q News that this is because tuition centers have been identified as sources of examination leakages. He says that there is need for government and other stakeholders to ensure that a lasting solution is found to fight the scourge. Recently, police arrested 10 Lusaka residents for unauthorized possession of suspected examination question papers. And a driver at Zikta, identified as Chimangeni Lungu, was arrested together with Cosmas Piri, a teacher at Green Carpet Private School in Chawama, after the former requested the latter to sit the 2019 GCE examination on his behalf.
The shortening of the examination period, especially for grade 9 and grade 12s, I think is the one attempt that can contribute to reducing exam leakages. Yes, when we talk about examination, tuition centers, we have always felt that, yes, much as we manage our public schools and the other learning institutions, the tuition centers have got a very big role to play when it comes to examinations and exam leakages. While we do not put the blame entirely on them, but I think we have seen cases where tuition centers have been used or have been identified as sources of some exam leakages and exam malpractices. The most recent one in Matero is an example in sight. So yes, there is need to regulate, to manage tuition centers, because you cannot just have an open arrangement and regulate it. And everyone thinks that, yes, as long as I have a structure, as long as I have somebody to use, it is my right. I can engage myself in this type of business. We have heard the reports of complaints of people arguing that, yes, they can register their business with the PACRA and do with the...
Agriculture Minister Michael Katambo has reiterated that farmers will begin accessing farming inputs by 1st September in readiness for the 2019-2020 farming season. Mr. Katambo says government remains committed to supporting the agriculture sector as a means of economic development and to eradicate hunger and poverty among the rural people who depend on the sector for their livelihood. Speaking in an interview with Q News, Mr. Katambo says agriculture is a key sector of the country's economy with direct implications on the overall performance of the national economy. He, however, states that while government remains committed to promoting the agriculture sector, there is need for farmers to supplement government's efforts.
For our farmers to safeguard their food security, of course they shouldn't sell everything. They should be able to keep some at household for them to service their families. But the caution as Minister of Agriculture is that it is important for our farmers to safeguard their crop and also to keep some at household level for food security.
The National Association for Medium and Small-Scale Contractors has urged New Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Vincent Mwale to ensure the 20% subcontracting policy is strictly adhered to by contractors. Association National Secretary Danny Sumumba has told Q News that the transfer of Mr. Mwale to the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure Development is welcome and timely. Mr. SUMBWE notes that Mr. Mwale worked well with local contractors during his time at Ministry of Local Government, and it is hoped that the same coordination and engagement with local contractors will be continued in his new portfolio as Minister of Housing and Infrastructure Development. He has implored Mr. Mwale to ensure that the 20% subcontracting policy is effectively implemented and avoid a situation where the local contractors are mainly nominated and picked on paper by contractors.
Of course, when it comes to the 20% subcontracting, we want it to be implemented effectively. We need to see change in the way works are allocated. We need to see proactiveness. We need to see the minister moving in to ensure that RDA are on top of things in terms of ensuring that the many contractors give out works to local contractors whenever they are nominated to go undertake those projects in various construction sites. We don't want to see the past trends where a contractor is nominated and he remains with the letter without doing any works at site. I think we hope to see change this time around. And we are there to support the minister to bring about the change we desire.
The Zambia Air Force ZAF has partnered with the National Institute of Public Administration NIPA to train 51 warrant officers in management and leadership programs. Speaking during the official opening of the course at NIPA main campus, ZAF Deputy Commander Major General Benedict Kalinda says the Air Force Command recognizes the importance of human resource development at all levels, including non-commissioned officers. General Kalinda says the Air Force Command's vision is to empower all service personnel with requisite civil diplomas and degrees by the year 2030. He says the management and leadership course, which is expected to run for 3 months, is expected to equip the officers with leadership and management skills, improved skills information systems and knowledge management, enhanced communication and report writing skills, as well as improved budgeting and cost management.
The warrant officers management leadership course we are witnessing today is a continued effort by command to enrich its human capital and give an opportunity to personnel to attain a diploma or a degree by the year 2030 as emphasized. It marks a huge milestone in command's endeavor to empower our personnel with middle management and leadership skills and management of diversity and optimum productivity. The course offers.
And NIPA Executive Director Professor Royson Mukwena is optimistic that the participants will embrace the transformational leadership training and use it to contribute effectively to industrial development.
Deputy Commander, this program has been designed in such a way that in the end it should bring important benefits to ZAF and the country that include improved management with strong strategic planning goals, skills, development of effective financial controls, monitoring and management systems, improved procedures through technological knowledge and knowledge management, innovativeness and creativity. It should be noted here that an organization that fails to be creative will most likely fail to achieve its strategic goals and be irrelevant in the development process of our countries. Deputy Commander, we as NIPA understand very well that a successful institution or business does not only compose of business strategies, but also exceptional leadership and change management skills.
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines. President Edgar Lungu has launched the Sustainable Development Goals SDGs Sub-Regional Center for Southern Africa with a call for the formulation of regional policies. The Civil Society Constitution Agenda SISCA says the Constitution Amendment Bill is a failed project and should be withdrawn from Parliament. And the Health Professions Council of Zambia is concerned that some health facilities are resorting to advertisement in a bid to persuade citizens to use particular health facilities. On that note, we end the news. Pleasant viewing.